Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars universe seems to be quite expansive, not just with their new books, novels, comics, and video games, but also, let's not forget about the new Star Wars TV shows and Star Wars movies that are currently in the works. That's really gonna actually give fans a brand new perspective on the franchise, given that FAVREAU, FILONI, and Lucas are all working together as a team to really deliver this brand new Star Wars experience down the road. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the new Star Wars universe is that a lot of fans around the world have been very much invested in what FAVREAU and Filoni are creating with the Mandalorian 4, the Ahsoka series, Mando 3, and a lot of other things that are currently attached to the roadmap of Star Wars. I'm sure that a lot of you are very excited for Tales of the Jedi, which by the way debuts this October. Now, with that being said, this actually comes to what's been happening behind the scenes between Bob Chapek, the Disney CEO, and Kathleen Kennedy, and also the Disney executives getting involved, and how this really has caused quite a rift between both Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Chapek. Now, this is going to involve a specific Star Wars project that was recently canceled altogether, that was related to Kathleen Kennedy, that would have caused a lot of problems and a lot of negativity and backlash from the Star Wars fandom without a doubt. We all witnessed what happened with the Kenobi series. This probably would have been worse than that when it comes to how the fans react in a very, negative way based on what the writers did and or based on what the directors did. So that brings us to, of course, what's been going on behind the scenes. Now, of course, with many new Star Wars projects currently in the works by Disney and Lucasfilm, both FAVREAU and Filoni already are getting ready to begin work on The Mandalorian 4 and other spin-off shows as well. Now, it's described that behind the scenes, many adjustments have been happening to Lucasfilm as a company. Recently, Disney CEO Bob Chapek erased and canceled a major project related to Kathleen Kennedy that was in limbo for about 2 years that was still attached to the roadmap of the Star Wars franchise. This project was described to be a 12-episode Star Wars series that was going to focus on Kathleen Kennedy's version of the original trilogy that was going to completely retell everything in order to change the canon and the lore within Star Wars. Now, the series was described to have a realistic animation style, very similar to the Old Republic video game cutscenes, and was going to retell all the events of episodes 4 through 6. The series was aimed to make Luke Skywalker less prominent and focus more on the character of Leia, and history was going to be changed in this series, as Kennedy was going to have Leslie Headland as a writer of the series after the Acolyte was finished, by changing some of the events that Lucas had created. Now, let me pause here quickly for a second. We talked about this very briefly, I don't know if you guys remember, about a year ago. There was a project that was in the works, or at the time was in the works, that was going to be animated, and it was going to be a series that was going to retell all the events of the original trilogy, literally. Each episode retelling a big chunk of each movie. And I don't know about you, but this would have been probably the worst thing that you could do to the fan base. And I think that this would have been absolutely the ultimate project that would have made fans just walk away and say they don't want to be a part of Star Wars anymore. This would have really wrecked the franchise. So I'm very glad and happy that Disney's executives and Bob Chapek were able to step in and prevent this from happening at all, and they were able to do so because of what happened, or what has been happening, with the Acolyte. It's been costing them so much money based on all the setbacks that Kennedy has caused, all the firings that she has caused of co-writers and directors, etc. This project has really been having a lot of production issues, which is why it was supposed to begin filming back in May, and now it's not going to do that until December. So this show is not going to be arriving until 2024, maybe in the first quarter. So, obviously, retelling the events of A New Hope, Empire, and Jedi, I think would have been disastrous, to tell you guys the truth. And I think you all know that as well. So, when you look at this overall, given that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't seem to stop, her limits never really seem to amaze me, because she always breaks those limits. She always goes, you know, past something that's going to be controversial to the fans, and it's just never fair. Which is why I think a lot of fans like myself are very on edge of the Skeleton Crew series and the Acolyte. Because let's face it, those two shows are heavily driven by Kathleen Kennedy. And when I mean heavily, I mean very much so, because she has a lot of creative power over those two series. So, with that being said, the next thing that I do want to go over, alright, progresses things further, is that, of course, this is, of course, the entire series, and this entire series recently was cancelled altogether about a week ago, where it was finalized and erased from the roadmap of Star Wars. The show was simply dubbed or went under the code name of Star Wars Tales of the Force, not to be confused with it being connected to Tales of the Jedi, as this was only a code name for the series. Now, this is something the executives knew would be a disaster, and decided to actually cancel it altogether, and that this has been in the development phase since 2019 when the sequels came to a close. Another main reason why Chapek canceled this altogether had to do with the fact that it was also going to change the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. So, the fact that she was also going to change Obi-Wan Kenobi's story, that is really the deal breaker there. That really was. You can't mess around with that character, especially in the originals. Now, I understand it, you know, some people might say, well, who cares, it's an animated show, what's the big deal anyway? To me, I think it is a big deal, because it goes to show you that Kathleen Kennedy does not care about the Star Wars fans, and this would have been probably the most direct piece of proof that would have been labeled as her not caring about the fans, with an actual show debuting that actual proof. So when you look at it like this, right, why even bother? Well, the reason why she was bothering is because this was going to make Luke less prominent in the story. It was going to focus more on the perspective of Leia. It was going to also change some of the actual events that take place in Tales of the Force. And we talked about this about a year ago. There was one scene where they wanted to actually rewrite history, where it was really Leia who gets herself out of prison and not Luke saving her. That was one of the big moments that was going to become a part of Tales of the Force. And I'm starting to wonder, maybe the show Tales of the Jedi got the title from that code name that Kathleen Kennedy gave this animated series that was recently canceled. It's really making me wonder. So overall, guys, you know, I think that at the end of the day, so far, John and Dave are doing a fantastic job with everything else. It's just Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte that I think a lot of fans are very worried about and skeptical about for proper and realistic reasons, right? So overall, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about everything related to Tales of the Force and how it was going to rewrite history in the original trilogy movies, and how it was going to be labeled as canon. This was not going to be treated like Star Wars Visions. They were going to make this literally canon. So anyways, guys, you know, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.